2, yeah, he will be included in the state assessment. She said, oh, no. I said, yeah, it passed in 97. All children with disabilities will have to take some type of testing in the year 2000. And she said, oh, no, they can't. I said, oh, yeah, they will. And John will be taking the 8th grade assessment. And I remember coming in and his special education teacher running down the hall. And she's like, Dena, I have to share this. And I said, what? She said, John passed his state assessment. And I said, I would have been really upset if he hadn't have passed them.
Well,
and she said, but you don't understand. He's the first special ed child in the state of Ohio to actually take state assessments. And he passed them.
And you're like, duh.
Yeah. Yeah, it was like, oh, you mean you can actually teach kids with disabilities?
Right, like, oh man, I can so relate. Like you expect me to be excited about what should be happening.
Exactly.
Yeah, right.
That's your job. That's
right. And we're supposed to be grateful and get down on our knees and worship. Oh, yeah, it happens so much still.
Exactly. So that was a wonderful experience for me. And then my mother became terminally ill, and I had to give my job up, go back to not going all over the country. I had to.
So you gave it up.
I did. I took an executive position with Family and Children First Council, and I ran programs there. One of the programs I ran was actually Part C of IDEA. So I was the administrator of the early childhood program in IDEA in Marion County.
Wow.
So I was the parent, then I was the advocate, and now I'm the administrator.
So it was perfect though. I mean, what a resource you were for them.
Yeah, it was crazy. It was interesting to be on that side.
Like what kinds of, was it just, give me a little glimpse of that.
Well, in that realm, it was, Part C is much different than Part B. So Part C is early childhood. So you're dealing with preschool.
Right,
so
okay.
DEI preschool. So you really don't have the issues other than, making sure you get speech, OT, and PT. One of the things that I did do in Ohio, we had a shortage of speech therapists, and we couldn't find them. I mean, they just didn't exist. So we partnered with Ohio State University. So young students that were were working to become speech therapists, as long as they were supervised by a speech therapist, they could work with kids. So we filled that gap with students, giving them actual coursework, working with kids, and then it supported the school. So that's kind of where I learned, if you support schools and you help schools, then there's no excuse not to educate. So, which came to the development of the Educator Mentor program that I developed here. So that was kind of the beginning for that.
Okay.
So, being director of Family and Children First, I actually am a special education mediator. And I also by the Juvenile Justice Center in Atlanta. And then I actually was trained by the Ohio Supreme Court Mediation Department.
Okay. So you got into more the legal aspect.
Well, and the reason was on my board at Family and Children First, I had every social service agency, every school superintendent. I had the mayor. I had the town council. I had the commissioners all on my board. I had the head of human services, the head of children's services. I had them all on my board.
Wow.
So, one of the issues in our community was truancy. Parents just not getting their kids to school. So I partnership with juvenile courts and human services. So one of the criteria for a family to actually get support through human services, financial support, is that they have to obey the law. And when you don't send your children to school, that's against the law. So I developed a truancy mediation program and had my mediators trained through Ohio Supreme Court. And we would actually, because I was a nonprofit, I could fill the gap. So if a parent came in and said, well, the typical issues such as, I can't walk my child to school because I don't have a stroller for my baby.
Like simple barriers that never had been fleshed out.
Exactly. So in mediation, we can flush all of those out. So we turn the truancy problem completely around. Completely around. So, and I did Strengthening Families, which is a parenting program for at-risk kids for drug and alcohol abuse. And I did that at EI preschool level, middle school level, and high school level, and, those programs. So what I would do is develop the programs, run the programs, do the programs, roll that money that I would be paying somebody to do the programs back into my budget so I could continue to do what needed to be done. So that in itself was very, very rewarding. But it was during that time that I wrote the book and started doing some presenting, and that's when I had ran into Kari. But to go back, when I was with the coalition is when I advocated for a young lady with tuberous sclerosis. Okay. And actually, her mother and father stood up for my husband and I for our wedding. So we became very close friends. That was a huge case in Ohio that it was horrible. They basically said that, they did everything wrong. They called the parents and told them their IEPs were being changed, that there would be no resource rooms, that all kids would be in full inclusion, and that it was an administrative decision. Yeah.
Oh, my goodness.
So I went in as an advocate, and I said, you can't do that. This is an IEP team decision, and you can't change. And the elementary principal and middle school principal actually, because when I went in to meetings, we had 200 people. It was crazy.
Wow.
So there were probably 15 people in that meeting. I had the elementary principal. I had the middle school principal, and we had the speech therapist, the OT. We had all of the teachers, and they were on there, and I explained to them basically my understanding of the law. You can't do this. And the elementary principal said, this was an administrative decision, and there isn't anything you can do about it. And I said, well, yeah, we can. Yeah, there's a lot these parents can do. And they were wonderful parents. They didn't want to they wanted to make things right for their daughter, but they also wanted to make things right for the entire school.
Of course.
And the teachers were devastated because they knew the kids weren't getting services. So we filed a complaint at the state level. And filed a due process. There were 9 different areas that a complaint was filed. They were found in noncompliance of 8 of the 9. The 9th one, it was a he said, she said thing, because I stated that she said it was an administrative decision, and she said that she did not say that in the meeting. And I don't take meetings. I want to be on good board. So, but anyway, needless to say, both principals lost their jobs, superintendent lost their job. They lost the due process completely. It was a huge change, and it was a huge case. It truly was.
I'm going to definitely Google that. That's incredible.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, it was so long ago though. It was back in 98.
It's funny because that's I can remember that, because I always mark time kind of when my kids are born, and 98 was when my 20-year-old was born. And I'm thinking back to, I'm kind of walking through this as far as what was going on in education where my own kids. So really amazing. And
then shortly after that's when my mother got sick, and I took the other job with family and children first. So, but then because of my friend recommended me to speak, and I was so impressed with, I work with every disability imaginable as an advocate, and I was so enthralled with the TS Alliance focus on families. When I went in, it wasn't about the doctors, it wasn't about the speakers, it was about the community. And I remember thinking, how wonderful would it be to work for an organization that cares more about the community?
Interesting.
And that's the focus. And I just remember thinking to myself, and they had actually rented this resort out. The family stayed at the resort. The speakers stayed off-site, at a Hampton Inn, and they brought us in. And
what year was this?
This would have been about would have been 13, 14. It was been a national, and it was in Chicago probably 14 years ago.
Okay.
Now. It was the national in Chicago, and it was at a resort.
Uh-huh.
And they bussed us in, and I just remember being bussed in with the docs, and the docs were talking about all of the medical, angioplasmomas and angiofibromas and, all of the terminology, LAM and all of that. And I'm thinking, I am so out of my depth here. So out of my depth. So, but yeah, it was. But
it was the family, it's funny because that's about when I met Dr. Teal. And I remember one of the first things she talked to me about was, if you can, you got to get involved with this alliance. And there was just no way I really could at that point, but it stands out because she described it like you are telling me. She's like, it's a family,
And our docs are part of that family. I mean, where else can you just walk up to a doctor and say, hey, this is going on with my child. What do you think? I mean, where else? And I'm like, I just was mesmerized at how approachable the docs are, how much they care. Elizabeth is amazing.
Yeah.
And Darcy and, all
There's
of
so many.
Oh, they're just all wonderful. And Dr. Gibson right now, she's taking the lead of the whole TAND issue. And it's just
hats off to her.
Oh, she's amazing. They're all amazing. They're just, so it was eye-opening for me. And then, I'm there just kind of starry-eyed and Corey comes up and she said, I think we're thinking about, what do you think? Would you be interested? And I'm like, heck yeah.
Yeah. So that was where you started.
Yeah. So that's how I got to the TS Alliance. That's the whole story.
Wow.